What's happening everyone, my name is Alex and welcome back. In today's video we are checking out the latest e-bike from Urtopia. The one that we have here today, it's called the Urtopia Carbon 1S. This is basically the upgraded model from the Urtopia Carbon that we've seen a few months back. Now according to the manufacturer, it's going to be 40% easier to climb hills with this bike, and of course that has a lot to do with the fact that now we have a 7-gear Shimano shifter. With the previous bike we didn't actually have any gear, so of course it's going to be much easier to climb hills with this bike. Now this bike is powered by a 250 watt motor that's located in the rear wheel here, but if you get this in the US, then you get a 350 watt motor. Here in the European Union you actually get a 250 watt motor, so this unit has that 250 watt motor. Now, as the name suggests, the bike is actually made out of carbon fiber, and it is one of the lightest e-bikes out there. This one weighs just under 16 kilos. So compared to all the other e-bikes out there, this one is going to be much easier to carry around because it is very light. Starting with a super quick unboxing, well, the bike comes in a fairly big box as you'd expect, but as I said, since the bike doesn't weight that much, that box is not that heavy. Now, you do have to do a bit of an installation when you first take this bike out of the box. You basically have to put the seat together, you have to put the pedals together and the front wheel. Now, it is fairly easy to put this together, so it's only going to take you about 20 minutes to get this ready and out on the road. You've probably noticed by now that the bike doesn't actually have a kickstand. So in the box, there is no kickstand for this bike. And this bike is not exactly cheap. This is a fairly expensive bike, so I was definitely expecting to get a kickstand in the box. But no, there is no kickstand that comes in the box, so you're gonna have to buy that separately, or you get to hold the bike as I do in this video, which is definitely not the best thing to do for a bike. Alright, moving on to brakes. So on the back and on the front we have hydraulic disc brakes, and I'm also happy to say that they're using a brand name for the brakes. So not some no-name Chinese brand that we've seen on many other e-bikes in the past. And the braking power from this bike is really good. So it doesn't matter how fast you're going, you have plenty of power so you can stop whenever you need to stop. I'm also happy to say that the brakes don't actually make any noise, so no squeaky noises, no noises at all whenever you're braking. So I'm very happy with the braking power that we get from this bike. Looking at the bike itself, well, this bike looks very unique when compared to all the other bikes available on the market. Wherever you ride this bike, people just turn their heads and look at you because the bike doesn't look like all the other bikes out there. The attention to detail on this bike is also much better than all the other bikes that I got to try up until now. Now, the battery pack is also located in the frame here, so it doesn't stick out like most other e-bikes out there. So this almost doesn't look like an e-bike at all. It looks like a regular bike, and that's definitely a good thing. The battery pack can also be removed from here, so you don't necessarily have to charge it in the bike. You can just remove the battery pack. There is a key lock on this side, so you can charge this anywhere. Now, charging this battery pack takes about 2.5 hours. But the range that you're gonna get from this bike is not that impressive, I'm gonna say. Now, it really depends how you're gonna be riding this bike, because you can get up to 100 kilometers on one charge, but if you probably use it on level 1 of assistance. If you're using on the turbo level of assistance, the one that I use, well, then you're gonna get about 25-ish, maybe 30 kilometers on one charge. So it really depends how you're gonna be riding this. If you do some exercise on it, you basically pedal a lot, you're gonna get closer to that 100 kilometers. But if you're a bit on the lazier side like me, well, 25 kilometers. So this bike has a fairly small battery pack. Moving on to wheels and tires, we have 27.5-inch wheels. These tires are the Kenda brand tires. These are road tires, they're puncture free, and they do work really well on the road. They're nice and sticky, so I don't really have anything bad to say about these tires. Not to mention they're extremely quiet when you are riding over pavement. As I mentioned earlier, we have a 7-gear Shimano shifter. Shifting gears up and down is done flawlessly. I didn't actually have to adjust the shifter system at all. With many e-bikes that I got to try in the past, I always have to adjust that a bit, but that was not the case with this one. The pedals on this that you have to install when you take the bike out of the box are made out of plastic, but they do work really well. And this bike is using a torque sensor, so it's not like all the other bikes that I got to try that have a speed sensor. So as soon as you start pedaling, the bike will give you power depending how hard you push on that pedal. So having a torque sensor is much better than having a speed sensor. Moving on to the seat, well, even though the seat doesn't look like it has a lot of padding, I actually find this quite comfortable. It is much more comfortable than it looks, I'm gonna say. So even riding for a couple of hours, it's comfortable enough, I'm gonna say. Now, one thing about the seat, this is the lowest position. So as you see it here, this is the absolute lowest position. And if you wanna move this higher, you basically have to undo a bolt that we have at the bottom here. So it's not that easy to change positions for the seat here. And I find it a bit on the high side as well for the lowest setting of the seat. I kind of need the seat a bit lower. Now on the back here, we also have the rear light. The rear light is super bright and you can definitely see it during the day and of course at night. On the sides here, we actually have turn signals. So these will project lights on the ground. Now, unfortunately, you can't really see those during the day, but if you're riding in the evening, you can definitely see those lights on the road. So it kind of makes the bike feel a bit wider. Maybe traffic, cars and stuff like that will not get as close to you because they will see those lights on the ground. That also acts as a brake light whenever you're braking. So a very interesting light system on the back. Since we are talking about that rear light, we might as well talk about the front light. So let me show you something first. If you hold this button pressed, light on. The bike also accepts voice commands. So the light is right here on the front. The light is also quite bright, so you can easily see that during the day and at night. And having voice commands on a bike is quite unique. So check this out. Light off. So you can turn the lights on like that or off like that by giving the bike voice commands basically. And of course that brings us to the handlebar that's also called the smart bar. So in the center here we have a more unique display, I'm gonna say. Now you can easily see this display even during the day. So it doesn't matter how bright it is out, you're always gonna be able to see that display. You can basically see the speed there, you can see how much battery you have. You can also get navigation directions. So the Urtopia app, if you install that app, and I highly recommend that you install that app because you have to activate the bike. But basically once you have the app installed, you can actually have navigation instructions showing up on the screen here. And that's going to be much easier than actually carrying a phone, looking on your phone to see where you're going and so on. So it is unique having this smart bar, as they call it. On the right hand side of the handlebar here, we also have a button that's used to power on the bike, and that button also has a fingerprint scanner built in. So every time you actually power on the bike and you hold your finger on that button, the bike will read your fingerprint and it will turn on or not depending if it's your fingerprint or not. So of course that's a security feature. Now, interestingly enough, this bike also comes with a 1-year 4G connectivity. So the bike is always connected. You can also check and see where the bike is located on the map. If someone moves the bike, if someone shakes the bike, you can see all that in the Urtopia app. And the app will also send you notifications. So you don't necessarily have to be close to the bike because everything is done through that 4G connection. Now, that's free for 1 year. After 1 year, you're gonna have to pay if you wanna keep that 4G connectivity. All right, so let me quickly show you how you'd use this bike. So of course we have the power button right here. This is also a fingerprint scanner. If you hold this pressed for about 3 seconds or so, the bike has to basically read your fingerprint scanner and then the screen comes on. And from here we can change assistance levels. So this is number 1, number 2, of course number 3. I'm not sure if you can actually see the screen. It is bright out and on the camera it doesn't show up as good. But if you hold this pressed, you basically go into a turbo mode. I'll show you that in a second. So we'll go for a short ride. Since we have a torque sensor, as soon as you start pedaling, the bike will start assisting you. So it is fairly easy to ride, mostly if you're riding on a flat surface as we are now. Well, we're kind of downhill right now. So I'm gonna do a brake test in just a second. We'll let that guy go. So we'll ride to about 25 kilometers an hour and we'll do a brake test right here. So if you want, you can definitely lock that front and rear wheel. I'll show you that once again. So we are doing 25 again and brake. So the brakes do work really well, and you've probably noticed by now this bike is very quiet. You can barely hear any noise from it whatsoever. We're gonna go to turbo mode. So now you get the most assistance from this bike. So pedaling becomes very easy, mostly if you're riding on a flat surface. As you can see, we are doing like 27 kilometers an hour right now. So it is that easy to ride this bike. You don't actually have to put that much effort in, mostly if you're riding on a flat surface. Alright, so next I want to show you how this bike would ride uphill. With a 250 watt motor, you can't really expect that much from it. This is a pretty steep hill. I'm not sure if you can actually see that. Let me show you better. So this is a pretty steep hill. We are in the first gear and assistance level turbo. Now, uphill with a 250 watt motor is not great. Like, you do have to put a lot of effort into pedaling. So if you don't like pedaling as much, maybe this bike is not for you. So this bike uphill is not great by any means. You definitely need like a 750 watt motor to ride uphill more comfortably. So this is how this bike would assist you if you're going uphill, basically. Alright, so to quickly conclude this video, the Urtopia Carbon 1S is a very unique looking bike that's also a very beautiful looking bike. I wish to have had a kickstand so you can actually see it better and I wouldn't have to hold it. Now, the riding position on it is not the most comfortable out there, mostly because when you are sitting on the bike, you do have to put quite a bit of pressure on your wrists here. I wish the handlebar would have been slightly higher, or maybe the seat would have been slightly lower, because as I said, this is the lowest that the seat will get. So whenever you're riding, you do have to put some pressure on your wrists. Now, the front wheel here is also removable, so you can easily remove that front wheel. So if you want to carry this in your car's trunk or something like that, it is much easier to do without that front wheel. It also helps a lot that the bike is quite light, so under 16 kilos. Compared to all the other e-bikes out there, this is extremely light. So even if you have to take this up the stairs, it is a light bike. The attention to detail on the bike is perfect. So there is not a single spot on the bike that's not perfect. Something that you can't really say about most e-bikes out there. So in many ways, this is gonna be the perfect bike for commuting, I'm gonna say. But this is not gonna be ideal if you have a lot of hills on your commute to work, for example, because you do have to put quite a bit of effort to go up hills. Now, of course, that has a lot to do with the regulations here in the EU, because this bike is compliant to the EU regulations, so that's why we have a 250 watt motor. If we would have the 350 watt motor version, it would probably be much easier to go up hills. So keep that in mind. This bike is not going to be ideal for very steep hills. However, it will be much better than the previous model that had no gears. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.